That is absolutely brutal. All great things must come to an end. Mars Delight chocolate bars, Blockbuster Video, your childhood naivety when you realise just how expensive cheese actually is. And now joining that very sad list of premature demise, the best fast wagon in the world, the Audi RS6. I'm Miles Lacey, and welcome to Driven. Yes, Audi has decided that we no longer need the dominating force of the car that's basically led the opposition for 20 odd years or so, and that's sad. Why does this always happen? Always to the things we love. I've been driving this car for the last 5 or 6 days now, and it's really got me thinking. Hang on a minute. Yes, Henry.
Hello, Miles. Do you mind just popping back for us, please?
Yeah, what's up?
We've got a little bit of an issue with the script, that's all.
Oh. What's up?
Well, you've got it wrong. They are getting rid of the RS6.
That's literally what I've just been telling the audience.
Yeah, but they're going to be replacing it with the RS6 Performance as the new standard car.
So the RS6 will carry on.
Yeah, it's still going to be there.
So it's not the kind of like end of an era sort of film.
No, not at all, really.
So, as I was saying, the Audi RS6 lives on and will do for many, 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 many years. So to give it its proper name, this is the Audi RS6 Avant Performance Carbon Vorsprung. So essentially this is the full 9 yards edition with kind of everything on it. So we've got nice carbon bits, matte black, the RS design package, and you name it. It all looks very nice and very sporty in inverted commas. The bit I'm really interested in is what do we get over the previous car. So we've got more power and torque from that 4-litre turbocharged engine. Now 620 horsepower, 850 newton meters of torque, so 20 more horsepower than before, 50 newton meters more torque than the previous car. Obviously the previous car was no slouch, but this just seems to get on with it even more than before. So if you're an avid follower of the channel and the podcast, you probably know by now that I love to talk about suspension and vehicle dynamics and all that boring stuff. That's what I used to do for a living. So it would be remiss for me to not talk about it on the RS6. So what have we got at play? What's actually affecting how the car drives? We've now got the Audi permanent four-wheel drive system known as Quattro. You've heard of that before, but it's now sending up to 85% of the torque to the rear axle. We've also got that combined with the sport differential, again on the rear axle, and active rear steering. All of those things combined do really make quite a profound difference to how the car actually drives. Audis of old, I know it just gets said a lot, but Audis of old always more towards the camp of balanced and safe on the road and not particularly dynamic to drive. This for me is entirely the opposite. So how do we feel about the way it actually drives? After all, this is what you're going to be doing in it, right? So the previous RS6 was fantastic. You know, it's a very long time since I've driven one, so it wouldn't be fair to do a direct comparison, but it does seem like this has really grown up, certainly in terms of the technology available. But what does that really mean? Well, first and foremost, it feels like it has a nice sort of presence on the road. It's big, but it doesn't feel too big. The steering for me is absolutely spot on. On the road, I tend to have everything just kind of set to like comfort everything. So like soften the dampers, soften the steering. I don't want the engine to be ballistic all the time. I can do that if I want to. But how is it just day-to-day knocking around? And that's always what these Audis have been very, very good at. Just covering distance without any drama, really. And this seems to do that just as well, if not better. So I've done around 500-600 miles in it now, and it's been a good fair test actually. There's been horrendous weather in the UK, as you'd expect, loads of heavy rain, and the roads have been really poor and all the rest of it. Kind of everything that you could possibly not wish to drive in. But it hasn't stopped me wanting to go out in the car at all. The grip, first and foremost, is amazing. The grip and traction that the car manages to sort of just drag out of nowhere is seriously impressive. And point to point, it's one of the quickest and most efficient cars I think I've ever driven. It's very, very complete in that regard. Worryingly so, actually. The pace at which you can cover ground is really impressive, but you're not having to work very hard as a driver, and actually I could just be sat chatting to you in the passenger seat and not even have to raise my voice. So it kind of does the best of both worlds. So how do we deploy all of that tech by pressing one easy button? Well, thankfully it's this one right here. Audi has now given us the RS button, where with one swift press I can activate it all and see what she's got to give. The way that the RS6 Performance just covers ground like nothing else is just frankly staggering. You actually do have to have a sort of quiet word with yourself every once in a while and go, just calm down for a second, because it just does it so bloody efficiently. So the job of the engineer is always a bit bittersweet, because at some point you do have to put your pencils down, but the reality is you want just another week, maybe another few days, or just one more trip. I could just fine-tune that. At some point the car has to be sold, of course. They've got to go and start make money out of it, but that doesn't mean that you haven't still got the ideas, and that's where I think the performance element of this car has really come from. The standard car, obviously super capable, but the little tweaks that they've made to this are subtle, but all of those things combined definitely make a big difference, and I can't help but feel like this was the car the engineers really wanted to make from day one. As I said before, I'm a huge BMW fan, and largely for the way even like a normal kind of 320 or 520 or sort of normal kind of entry-level car drives, because they're still really engaging, and that's where we spend most of our time, is driving on the road. So the track performance is sort of a bit irrelevant. And I always felt like Audis were sort of lacking in that department, but what they've achieved with this seems to have really combated any of those concerns, to be honest. It's really got some playful dynamics about it. It is genuinely fun car to drive, and I found myself wanting to keep driving it. I even picked up my friends the other day and we went for a road trip, and I never do that. Normally I'm the one that's sat in the passenger seat. I'll just take photos because I'm just not that bothered about driving in the UK at all, but I kept finding myself electing to go and pick people up and go for a drive just so they could experience it, and needless to say, they put a hell of a smile on their face too. One of the elements I picked up on straight away was how the car sort of hides its mass, really. But what do I mean by that? It's not suddenly getting lighter. It's still a very heavy car, but what does the chassis technology do, and how have they tuned it to make it feel not like a big, heavy estate car? Well, first and foremost, the steering response. When you put any small input in, you've got that sort of instant lateral acceleration build-up, kind of like a bang, like a sports car almost. It just changes direction very quickly and very positively. That gives me a lot of confidence as a driver. So when you do start to lean on and push on in the corners, you've got absolute confidence that you're not going to just plough straight on into the hedges. And even the way it goes about its business, now you've got the active rear steering and the dynamic ride control, it feels like the car rotates more about the middle of the car rather than the front, because that's what Audis used to do, right? They always used to sort of push on a little bit, but this feels very neutral off the corners, and actually in some cases when you get on the throttle it will sort of drive its way off the corner from the rear axle, and that feels really quite nice when you're used to cars that aren't as dynamic as this. Probably something you associate fast Audis with 9 times out of 10 is not necessarily the way it drives from a chassis point of view, but the powertrain. The engine and gearbox combination in this car is absolutely sublime. It's the 4-litre twin-turbo V8 that we've seen in quite a few other cars, with increased boost pressure now, so we're now 620 horsepower, 850 newton meters of torque. That's plenty. How does that feel on the road? It feels relentless, to be honest. I was saying to one of my friends the other day that we've almost become a bit desensitized to sort of 0 to 60 acceleration. because electric cars all do that. Even a normal sort of Kia or something, you know, accelerates extremely quickly off the line. This does that, but it just keeps on going. I think where it delivers most of its power and torque is in that sort of 40 miles an hour to 70, 80 miles an hour band, where you're already cracking on and you just breathe on the throttle a bit more. It doesn't even change down, it just waves its way up to, you know, considerable speeds. And I can imagine if you're actually using this on a road trip, driving on some de-restricted roads, this would happily sit at sort of 140, 150 miles an hour without even breaking a sweat. It's a fantastic, fantastic powertrain. Now, before we get too carried away falling in love with the RS6 performance, there is a couple of things that we should address, namely the price. Whilst Audi is offering a lot more with the RS6 performance, the price has grown up quite a bit, quite substantially actually. The starting price is now £115,000, but if you want a few more toys, it goes up quite a bit. This carbon Vorsprung edition is now £126,000. And we're not quite done yet. If we go for the carbon brakes options and a couple of other toys that we've got on this, on the road it's £140,000. That's starting to sound like quite a lot of money. Or is it? So what would you actually have to buy in order to get all the attributes that the RS6 delivers on? Well, let's start with the obvious, space and sort of family car ability. Well, a Range Rover Sport maybe? Well, there's £90,000 straight away. Performance and driving dynamics, a Porsche Panamera maybe? Well, there's £85,000, £90,000 again. And then that kind of all-rounder, do it very well, do it at pace and in comfort kind of attribute. A BMW M5 is another £110,000. Very quickly we find ourselves at the thick end of nearly £300,000, which, dare I say, is starting to make the Audi actually look like quite good value. So the question lies, is the Audi RS6 still the most complete car in that space? Yeah, I think it is. It just seems to do all of those things that we've talked about just exceptionally well. The business of actually just being a car that you're going to use every day, it's just basically perfect, isn't it, really? I can't ask for any more than what this car delivers. We are, of course, expecting the BMW M5 Touring coming later in 2024, so maybe we should do a back-to-back test and see how they actually stack up against each other. But it's going to be some hard yards, because the Audi RS6 performance still for me is just, it's the one. This is the one you need to go and get if you want the fast wagon that does it all. This is the car. But as ever, thank you for watching Driven. Please like and subscribe if you like what you've seen. And do let us know in the comments if there's anything in particular you want to see, or any comments you've got on the car and what we've said about it today. And there will, of course, be a full review on our website, which is driven.site. See you there.